Welcome. Welcome to this month's edition of the school community Q&A, real estate Q&A. Get all your questions answered so that you guys can make progress toward your real estate investing goals. My name is Blake Choisnet. If you don't know me yet, I'm the founder of the 90-Day Rental Roadmap, built a multi-million-dollar portfolio in 18 months, didn't have any experience in real estate investing prior to that, retired in 2 years, self-made millionaire in 5, multi-millionaire since. And I've helped 500 other people do the exact same thing. So if you're interested in getting in touch to see how that would work for you, you can, in fact, I'll send you, you can go to 90dayrentalroadmap.com and you can set up some time with us. I'll put that in the chat. If you got questions, what we're going to do is the people on the call get first dibs. Sorry about you. That's just how it works. If you're on the call, you made it a priority to be on the call, you get first dibs. So any questions you send over in the chat, I will get you taken care of, and I'll answer those questions, even if it's analyzing a deal. If that would be helpful, great. We'll get that taken care of. If you're on social and you want to join this, go to school.com/rentals2wealth. That's rentals, the number 2, wealth, and go to the calendar, and that will be the link to this call so that you can hop on the call as well. For those of you that sent over questions ahead of time, via the BlakeSchoisnet.com/ask link, I'll get those taken care of. But again, those that are on the call, you are the ones that get priority. So as you have questions, send them over in the chat and we will get you taken care of. Let me get everything here set up. Boom, boom, boom. All righty. Here. Boom. All righty. Right. Okay. All right. So we are ready to roll. So if you got questions, send them over. We'll get you taken care of. Let me bring up our questions. All right. Jeff, I'm unable to attend. Will it be recorded? Yes, it will. It'll be in the classroom under the Q&As, and you'll get that taken care of. You'll be able to watch it there. You can also see all of the other Q&As from previous months so that you can get all your questions answered. All right, next question. How can I buy real estate if I don't have lots of money saved up? This person specifically calls out $100,000, but you don't even need that. If you're part of the school community, one way to answer this that's probably the most practical is go through the training, go through the 7-day fast start. And I go through, I think it's day 2, all of the strategies all of the primary strategies. I'm sure there's, some obscure real estate strategy that could make you tons of money, but all of the main strategies and who they're right for and who they're wrong for, what their benefits are, what their trade-offs are. There's no perfect real estate investing strategy. It depends on what your goals are. And if your goals are cash flow, then a lot of great strategies are straight out the door. And if your goals are long-term tax advantages, you have different options. If you're constrained on time, if you're constrained on money, you've got different options. So, but if you are looking to get into real estate and you don't have $100,000 saved up, my next question would be, okay, so you're cash constrained. My next question is, how much time are you willing to put into it? Because if you want this to be something that is passive and you want it to be something that is, you're spending 3 to 5 hours a week, that's very different than something that you're willing to put 40 to 60 hours a week into. If you can become an agent or start wholesaling or whatever you want, but that's a lot of time. So you're knocking on doors, you're making calls, you're doing direct mail, direct marketing. If you're a professional and you want to do this in addition to your white collar job, or you don't want to just quit your job and do this full time because you got a family and you really just want to create some additional passive income and set them up long term, build a legacy, build some generational wealth to hand off to them and teach them how to do it themselves, then you've got a few really good options. The best option of which is the BRRRR model. So the BRRRR model is the cousin of the flip, but think of it as a way to get cash flow from a property that costs you no money out of pocket. So you get a cash flowing property with low or no money out of pocket. You say, well, why? How can I do that? And the answer to that is think about, when you buy a house, most of you think you got to have 20% down. You don't need 20% down. The bank doesn't care about 20% down. You care about 20% down because it's what comes out of your pocket. The bank cares about what comes out of their pocket, which is 80% loan to value. So taking that into account, if we set that aside and we go back over to the market and we find a property to buy for, say, $50,000. And if you think those properties don't exist, go to Zillow, just filter to $50,000, go to the nation. They're all over the place. And let's say that this is really worth $100,000 if it's in good shape. So it's not in great shape. It needs a little bit of love. It's a little bit distressed, needs some paint, maybe a little bit of landscaping. And you say, I know it's worth 100, but how much is it going to cost to fix it up? And you get a quote from a contractor. That's 20 grand. So you need 70 to get into it, but it's going to be worth 100. And if you got 70, great. If not, there's tons of ways that you can finance that: private money, hard money. There's institutional money that you can fund that. So you've got a loan now for $70,000 on a short-term loan. You fixed it all up and now it's worth 100, and you earned $30,000. That's your money. But you can't, it's not liquid. You can't just go use it to, spoil your girlfriend or go out on a date with your wife or go on a vacation or whatever. You have really two prevailing ways to access that money. One of them is to sell the property. That's what a flip is. And everybody's familiar with flip, HGTV, Property Brothers, Chip and Joe. But all you're doing is you're buying a distressed, value depreciated asset, and then you're improving that asset. You're forcing the value north by fixing it. That's it. That you take advantage of the fact that most people don't have great imaginations. They just don't. And so they don't see what you could do. And on top of that, even if they do see it, they don't have to get up and go to actually do it. They can't execute it. All right. So all you're doing is you're doing that process. And then after you have that $30,000, if you actually don't want to just cash it out and go, spend that money on yo-yos or a boat or whatever, if you want to take advantage of the cash flow and the wealth creation, the tax advantages, instead you go over to that lender that we talked about previously. And you say, hey, I want to refinance my loan. And they will give you 80% of the value of that house. All right. Now that house is worth $100,000. So they'll give you $80,000 in form of a loan. That $80,000 pays off the 70 that you borrowed. It gives you a little bit of wiggle room to pay off the interest on that loan, call it $3,000 or $4,000, depending on how long you hold it. And then you got $6,000 or $7,000 of what I call stupid money, just mistake money or money for either mistakes or doc prep fees, closing fees, title costs, whatever those are. But now you're all in $0 on a property, and you have it like you put 20% down on it. That's it. You bought a property like you put 20% down on it, but because you ordered it in the right way, you don't have any money out of your own pocket coming out of it. On a property like that, your mortgage payment's about $500 a month. That's P&I. Then you've got another, call it 40%, that's going to operational expenses like insurance, taxes, maintenance, CapEx, vacancy, et cetera. And you're walking away with about $300 a month because you're renting it out for $1,500 a month. So there are some markets where you can buy a $400,000 house and you can only rent it out for $1,500 a month. There are other markets you can buy an $80,000 house and rent it out for $1,500 a month. So you got to find the right market for sure. But that's one mechanism for being able to do this. Get cash flowing properties with low or no money out of your own pocket. So you don't need a lot of money to start. People that say, obviously it's easier if you do have money, right? The first 100,000 is the hardest. The first million's the hardest. The first billion's the hardest. Once you have money, it gets easier. But 90% of millionaires were created through real estate. They didn't have real estate before they got into it. They weren't millionaires before they got into it. They were created through real estate. So it's the simplest and most reproducible way to become a millionaire. And anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. It's a science. It's not an art. So that's what I would say on that one, Brock. If you're trying to get into real estate and you're saying, do I have enough money? Yeah, you can get into real estate with no money out of your pocket. You just got to decide, what are my priorities? And if you want to get into real estate with little or no money out of pocket, and you don't want to put a full-time amount of work in, the BRRRR model is perfect. For those that aren't familiar, BRRRR is an acronym. It's a B and 4 R's, and it stands for, it details the process. So you buy a property, you rehab it or renovate it, you rent it out, you refinance the note, and then you repeat that process. All right. And so that's all it is. So that's what I'd say there on how to get into a property. So, all right, next one up. Boom, 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 boom. Can I send deals to the community? We're not focused on being a deal source for people. We're focused on being an education source and a community for helping other people make progress. If you do have deals that you want people to send, I will send them to my community, send them to deals@blakeshwiney.com, and I'll send them out to our students, and they'll get them taken care of. One note is we target cash flow markets. So if you've got something in Nashville, or you got something in Manhattan, or you got something in Portland, that we're not a good source for that. It's not going to be a good option for you. It's just a waste of your time. So, but if you got something that's reasonably cash flow positive, we'll take him down. We've got Justin Robbins just killing it. He started 100 days ago. He's already got 6 doors under his belt. So, all right. All right. Next one is, why would someone lend to me if I don't have any experience? Why would someone lend to you if you don't have any experience? So, in the previous question, when we were talking about how to get started with the Burr model, the Burr model is perfect for somebody that needs money, or maybe they don't have a ton of money to start, but they want cash flow. Now, whenever you're on the front end, you've got that 50 plus 70 we talked about. You've got the purchase plus rehab. You need somebody else to finance that. All right. You need somebody else to finance that amount of money. So then who could that be? Well, there's hard money lenders out there. And if you're on the call and you want my lender vault, for those that are on the call, I'll send my lender vault over to you in the chat. It's hundreds of lenders that are short-term, long-term, lines of credit, whatever. I'll send that to you just as a thank you for being here. But there's tons of lenders that are institutional. Then there's banks that have products that are fix and flip products. The challenge you run into with banks is they move slow. They just do. They move slowly, and they have a really rigid underwriting process that sometimes doesn't make sense, but you don't get to argue with gravity. Right? Gravity just is. You can't say it's unfair. Same with bank processes. You can argue and say it's unfair. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. So only focus on what you can control. So now the final funding component there outside of lines of credit and your own cash would be a private money lender. A private money lender is an individual with their own money. It's me or you or Jane Doe. I would contend that within 4 or 5 doors of where you live, there's some lady that's driving a 92 Camry. She's got $5 million in her investment portfolio that it's super conservative. She's making 2 to 3% on all she wants to do is play mahjong and spoil her grandkids. That's it. And you can help her do that. So if the question is, why would someone lend to me if I don't have any experience? The answer is simple. You're trying to make them money. So this is different than like a middle school fundraiser where you're raising money to go on a mission trip or something like that, where you are relying on someone's good nature. All right. Like what they're giving you in return, they're giving you some money, and what they get in return is the feeling that I did something good. All right. So if you're sponsoring a missionary, or you're donating to a nonprofit, or you're attending a gala and you're, bidding on something on silent auction, it's not because you actually are willing to pay that amount of money for that thing. It's that you want to feel good about what you're doing, that you're contributing to humanity. This is not that situation. This situation is essentially showing up to somebody in the desert and offering them a cool glass of water. First, it's got to be the right person. And second, the water has to be actually water. It can't be vinegar. It can't be a cup full of sand. You've got to know how to communicate that it is really valuable to them. So there's 2 things that you've got to address in these conversations. Once you find the right person, and it comes down to the 2 components of trust. And trust is fundamentally made up of 2 things: character and competence. You only bring up one of these, which is experience or competence. But really what you're asking them to do is to trust you with their money. And so character is usually not the issue, because if you're talking to somebody either that you know or that secondhand that's been connected to you through another friend, you are relying on their character and they're vouching for your character. So first, they have to be willing to vouch for your character, because otherwise they're not passing you on. If they don't think that you're a trustworthy person, they're not going to pass you on to this person and risk their own character perception. So first, they've got your character. Usually that's not the problem. Whenever you're raising money or trying to find a private lender, the trust component that is character is usually not the problem. And if it is the problem, you got a big uphill battle, because you've got to change your character. And not only your character do you have to change, but you also have to change people's perception of your character and start rebuilding it. It's easier to build competence than it is fundamentally change your character. So most of the time it's on the other side, which is competence. So when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're saying, hey, this is how this works, would you be interested in something like that? If they say no, and their goals contradict that, if they're saying, I really want to make more money on my money and I want it to be really hands off and I want it to be safe, and then they say, no, I don't want to do this with you. You say, okay, well, why? Because it seems like these 2 things contradict each other, because what I'm offering can give you what you're saying you want. So why is it? Is it that you don't trust me? I mean, trust has 2 components: character and competence. It's not going to hurt my feelings. What is it for you? Is it competence, character? And usually they're like, well, I'll do it, but like, go do 4 or 5 doors first, and then we can get rolling. And then you're in the chicken and the egg situation. All right. Where like you have to have a property in order to get the funding, but you need the funding to be able to get a property. Or it's like when you're leaving college and you go to the career fair, they're like, well, you got to have an internship in order to get this internship. But all the internships say you got to have internships before you can get the internship, just stuff like that. Your conversation with them can then center around expertise. And if you don't have any expertise yourself, not only do you need to communicate really clearly what's next or what the steps are ahead, but you also probably need to borrow somebody else's expertise. So my students, one, I give them my private lenders. I'm teaching them how to raise private money, but I'm also giving them access to my private lenders. I also give them the luxury of saying, bringing me onto a call like that and essentially positioning me as a partner. Whether I'm an equity partner in the property or not, I'm definitely a competence partner and can speak to the entire process. Because the reality is this is really, really protected. If they don't trust your competence, then you can say, okay, well, in your head, you're probably thinking, what happens if this goes wrong? Like, what happens if it goes bad? And that's just a different conversation of risk. So how likely is it to go bad and how much does it hurt when it goes bad? And you can explain to them that the Burr model is the single most protected and risk protected cash flow investing model there is. I mean, it's so, if you do everything wrong, a terrible Burr, you just end up selling the property and you make $3,000-$4,000 on a failure, right? As opposed to a flip where you lose $40,000-$50,000 just because the market fundamentally changed. It's way more predictable. So that's why I'd say, why would someone lend to you if you don't have any experience? Because it's in their best interest. If their goals align with yours, with what you can provide. If their goals don't align with what you provide, you just got to move on. So that's what I'd say on that side. If you've got questions about that, send it over to the community. Ask any questions in the school community, and we'll get you taken care of. I know one of the people on the call is in our mastermind. So if you got questions about that, send it over to our mastermind community, or you can hop on the coaching call tomorrow afternoon, and we'll get you taken care of. All righty. Next, all right. Is now a good time to invest with interest rates so high? So my answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. But I think it's helpful to understand that if you got to look at someone's motivations as well whenever they're giving you feedback. I invest in real estate, so whether I want to be or not, I'm going to be biased towards real estate. If someone's selling you umbrellas, they're going to be telling you it's going to rain and it's going to rain real bad, and you really don't want to be walking around in wet shoes, stepping in the mud. So, what I try and do is I try and not correct myself, but I try and play devil's advocate often, because I'm doing this in my own selfish best interest, right? I want to provide for my family. I want to care for my family and the future generations that come after me. And so what's the best way to do that? If it's real estate, great. If it's selling yo-yos, fine. I don't care. If it's shoveling sewage, I don't care. Whatever is best for them, I'll do. And so when I look at real estate, it's easy to predict a market downturn. Robert Kiyosaki, somebody whose educational methodology I really, really respect, he's been predicting one for a housing crash for 15 years. It's easy to predict a crash. Right now is a really good time to invest for a number of reasons. One, a lot of people think it's not a good time to buy a house. And you might say, well, how do you really know that? One, existing home purchases was at a 9-month low yesterday. And so today's April 14th, 2026. Yesterday, a report came out that existing home purchases were at a 9-month low. Now, I'll also contextualize that with when the first rate cut happened. This is 12 to 16 months ago or so. When the first rate cut happened, they announced the rate cut on a Wednesday. And by the next day, in one day, there was a 30% increase in home buyers. So what does that tell you? It tells you that it is not a rate thing. It is a market psychology thing. Why? Because yes, they cut rates, but did the actual effectual rate change? No. From Wednesday to Thursday, the rates did not change. They definitely didn't change a quarter of a point, which is what it decreased from the federal lending point basis. So what happens is the banks and the lending institutions say, what's going to happen in the future? We think they're going to decrease it a quarter point. Well, if we think they're going to decrease it a quarter point, our expenses are going to go down a quarter point. Well, let's just start offering our loans at a quarter point lower so that we can undercut the competition and get a few loans, get like as many loans as possible in before that happens. So then more and more people start doing that. So that's what happens when you hear someone saying that rate was already priced in. It was already priced into the market. So rates did not change from Wednesday to Thursday. So then why would there be a 30% increase in home buyers? I mean, a 1% or 2% increase, single digit increase in home buyers in one day is noteworthy. 30% is insane. That's wild. So what does that tell us? It tells us it's just a market psychology thing. If someone feels like it's a good time to invest or a good time to buy, they'll jump in. They just don't want to be the idiot that bought at the top. It's like going into a used car dealership and not negotiating. You don't want to be the idiot that didn't negotiate when all you got to do is say like, "Is that the best you can do?" and just see if they squirm. Like that's easy. It's the easiest money you'll ever make. So that's one thing that I'd say is now a good time to invest, even with the rates so high. Yes, because there's less competition. I mean, the guys I'm working with, they're saying there are more deals out there than I can keep up with, and so the questions are not how do I find a good deal. It's how many deals can I take on that's wise. Is that 4 at a time? Is it 20 at a time? Is it 40 at a time? And still maintain the lifestyle that I want to live. So it's not a deal shortage for sure. It is helpful to know though, with higher interest rates means your position is different. The value proposition for you per property is different. So cash flow is still doable. I'm thinking of one student that we evaluated a deal on. What was it? A week ago, maybe 5 days ago, and cash flow of $450 a month. And no, that was actually one Justin, when he refinanced, he walked away with 15 grand at closing of refi and $450 a month. So those deals are all over the place out there. But not just do you have cash flow, but you have tax advantages. So you've got to ask the question: are rates going to go down? Is it reasonable to expect that rates will go down? Yes, it is. So the question of how much will they go down? Will they ever go back down to 2%? Ever? I don't know. In our lifetime, probably not. I wouldn't bet on it. I think 4% is the new 2%. 4% will be as low as they really go, but nobody's got a crystal ball. And so, but you've got to decide, is it reasonable that it would go down? Is it going to go down or up? Well, the Fed, we got a new Fed chair coming in at the end of May, and he's essentially promised Trump that he will decrease rates. So whether that's just political posturing or he's at least going to decrease them once. All right. Seems reasonable. Is it going to go up from there or down? I expect that it's going to go down. I think that's reasonable. So how much it goes down? Who knows? If you get a property at today's rates and they go down 1%, 2% over the next few years, your cash flow could reasonably double. So you've got a huge tax hedge now with some cash flow. And then you've got incredible cash flow down the road, not to mention when rates do come down, home prices are going to go up. It's just a supply and demand thing. A report came out yesterday that we're between 10 and 15 million single family homes short of the demand that we really need in the United States. And that's why there's so much, we're becoming a nation of renters. And there's a bunch of reasons that we could get into for that, like why that's happening, but it's just the truth. So they're not making any more land. God's not making any more land, so might as well get it now. So that's what I'm saying there. I think fear, I'll say this, Freddie, fear is, it's the most contagious disease there is. More than COVID, more than the flu is fear. And to a certain extent can be helpful because your brain is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to help you survive. So fear can be helpful whenever it comes to, you see a black bear, should I go hug it? No, just because the fur is soft doesn't mean that it's a good idea to hug it. So you should ask the question, is this a wise thing to do? But letting fear make your decisions is a terrible model for success. And I would say a terrible model for happiness and joy in life. So you've got to ask, is it beneficial for me? Would it serve me and serve my goals? And right now I can say 100% now is the best time. It's the cheapest homes will ever be. And you might try and time the market, but these types of cash flow markets aren't going down. You're reading the you, and when I say you, I mean the proverbial you, armchair investors that are like thinking, should I invest? I've been thinking about it 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Should I invest in real estate? Really, what they're looking at is they see the report that says, oh, home prices in California tanked. Home prices in, home prices in Austin, Texas tanked. Those are not cash flow markets. They're not cash flow markets at all. And so you don't need to be looking at those. For cash flow markets, they are not decreasing in value. They're increasing in value. They're not going to increase in value the same way that one of those major markets will around the COVID timeframe, where they spiked 20, 30%, but they're still going up. So that's what I'd say on, is it a good time for you to invest? Yes, 100%. It's a good time for you to invest. But again, it's not, I could tell you, most people, I could say this is exactly what you need to do. And most people just aren't going to do it because success and fortune in general favors the action takers, those that are willing to take action. And so typically, I say this with humility, that usually when someone's asking, is now a good time to invest? They're typically trying to give themselves an excuse for not investing, even though they've wanted to do it for 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And they're trying to convince themselves that now isn't the perfect time to invest. And the reality is now isn't the perfect time to invest. There is no perfect time to invest. And but now is a good time to invest. So if you or anybody that's asking this question, is now a good time to invest with interest rates so high, there will always be a reason to not invest. It'll be, money's hard to get, interest rates are high, that there are no good deals, home prices are too high, whatever. There's always something. And for those of us that are investing, I'll tell you this, that's our benefit, because what we do is we say, all right, the market is changing in this way. And what we can do is adapt to the new opportunities it's giving us, instead of letting fear cripple us by saying, what am I going to do now? We just go, we hit the easy button. We just make it easy on ourselves. And so if you're saying, you know what, it has been too long for me wanting to be in real estate, but not really doing it, and you want somebody to walk you through the process and help you minimize your risk profile, so you're not, my first contractor walked off with 12 grand. I didn't know what I was doing. So if you want some protection on that side, go to 90dayrentalroadmap.com or just send me a message on school, and we'll see if we're a good fit to work together. For those on the call, on the Zoom call, I've got that link here in the chat. If you do have questions, send them over in the chat, and I will get you taken care of. For those of you, for those of you that are on the call, you get first priority for answers. So if you got questions and you send them over in the chat, I'll answer those first before I answer the any other social media platform questions that come in. And then the final things that we'll go through are the questions that are submitted at BlakeSchweineT.com/ask. BlakeSchweineT.com/ask. All right, let's check out. Let's check out some other questions. All right, Chris. Practicing my deal analysis. I was curious how to come up with a rehab estimate early in the process to see if it's even worth going deeper into without involving a general contractor. Okay. This is a great question. So essentially the core of this question is, one, how do I estimate rehab? And two, knowing that I'm not going to be very good at it because I'm new at it, how do I protect myself? And one of the things that I'm trying to protect is my relationship with my contractor, because I don't want to send my contractor out to 100 different properties and him spend an hour on each quote to send over to me, line item quote, and then I don't close on on any of them. I've just wasted tons of his time and his ability to spend time with his family and stuff like that. So I recommend, as far as deal analysis and due diligence, a 3-step method: 1, 2, 3. And they get the first steps are easier, but they're less accurate, and they get more detailed and more thorough as you move forward. So you'll do this for all of the core components of your deal analysis. That's, purchase price is kind of baked in, but ARV, rent, and rehab for a BRRRR. For rehab, what that looks like practically is, one, the first step is give yourself just your best guess. And the best tool that I have for that, and again, this for cash flow markets, the best tool I have for that is a price per square foot multiplier. So between $10 a square foot and $40 a square foot is what I'd multiply. So if you got a 1,500 square foot house and it's a lipstick fix, you just need a little bit of paint and some landscaping, you can plan for $10 a square foot, $15,000. Now, is it going to be exactly $15,000? Should you get under contract on a property just using price per square foot? No, never. That's a terrible idea. So if but it does filter things out. What you know is it's probably not going to be $80,000, and it's probably not going to be $800, but at least puts a number on paper. On the other end of the spectrum is if it's an overhaul. So we're talking a property that's down to the studs in one or all places. You've got drywall that's either knocked out or completely gone. You can see plumbing and electrical lines. You have sometimes the ceiling will have caved in due to leaks and things like that. You got windows covered with plywood, roof like major damages. It's an overhaul and it's a full gut. That's about $40 a square foot. Now, if you're in real estate and you're flipping properties in luxury properties, whatnot, you might say $40 a square foot. That's crazy. That's like the bare minimum for me. Yeah, if you're in the Bay Area, services are just more expensive. But if you're in cash flow markets, $10 to $40 is what you should target. So you've got anywhere between $10 and $40. And so, as practically as possible, if you say, well, what does this property, 123 Example Street, what should it be? We went over one of these on the call yesterday on our coaching call. You look at it and you say, all right, well, is it a lipstick fix? No. Is it a full gut? No. Which one is it closer to? Closer to a lipstick fix. Okay. $20 a square foot then. That's what I would say. And multiply it out and say, all right, for a 1,500 square foot house, that's $30,000. So that's the first step. Then if the numbers still pencil out, the next step is go through every single picture and every single video and line item everything out. I need all of these things. And I've got a rehab cheat sheet, a rehab costs cheat sheet, reference sheet to know what everything is going to cost down to price per square foot, or for example, by window, how much it's going to cost, so that you can then total all of that up and say, all right, well, I thought it was first going to be about $15,000, but now I know after I line item everything out, it's probably going to be about Y. Right? Maybe I trim it down. It's probably going to be closer to 11 or 12. Those numbers still work, or maybe it balloons a little bit. The requirement there is you got to have pictures and videos. And oftentimes wholesalers or off-market properties don't have great pictures and videos. So you got to get boots on the ground for somebody to actually get you pictures and videos. When they don't have pictures or videos in the listing, think this is gold. Because of 100 people that see this, probably 85 of them are going to be like, no pictures, moving on to the next one. They don't know how to do their job. Awesome. All right. 85 of them just self-opted out. Now you only have to beat 15 of them. All right. So you got to move faster and you got to come up with the most competitive price that you can. So that's the second spot. Then if you get to the point, so on step 2, you're going and line iteming everything out. Step 3 is have them send you a quote, the contractor. Say, hey, go out here and do this. If you're still not very confident, this will happen earlier on in your journey. If you're still not confident, 2B for establishing rehab is send the videos and the pictures over to your contractor and say, hey, I want to protect your time. Do not spend more than 5 minutes on this. I got this property. This is what I'm looking at doing. It's rental grade. It's going to be a rental. How much do you think this will cost? I mean, they spend 24 hours a day, 365 a year, all day, every day doing this. So they're going to be able to look at it and say, well, it's probably about this much. All right. And just tell them, somewhere within $5,000 of what you think it's going to cost. And they say $25,000 to $30,000. Great. Now you can go in and you can either save them time, or you come back and you say, hey, that didn't work. So I appreciate it. And you saved them from missing their daughter's volleyball game. All right. Or it works and you say, all right, go ahead. When can you get me a line item quote? Sweet. And they send it over. So that's what I'd say on the rehab side. What that allows you to do is it's CYA, it just covers your butt. You have to, your due diligence has to be done in such a way that you can protect your downside. You should know before you even offer on a property, within $50 a month, how much you're going to cash flow on it. And within $1,000 out of pocket, how much is going to cost you. And I think that should really be $500, $1,000. I'm not a marketing or sales guru. Like, I'm an investor. And so I think $1,000 is very, very reasonable. And you should know that even before you invest in the property, or before you get under contract on the property. So that's what I'd say on the rehab side of things. All right, Kevin, if I wanted cash flow as a priority, what would you recommend? Kevin, give me a little bit more context on this. When you say what would you recommend? Do you mean as far as strategy, like what model would be best for you? And then as you respond to that, Kevin, in the chat, also tell me how much time you have for this. Whenever I'm recommending models or strategies for people, my first question is, what are your goals? Right? Because if you want to learn how to, basket weave underwater, it's a very different strategy than if you want to learn how to bench 485, right? So you've got to establish your goals first and then define what your constraints are. And usually for real estate investing, the constraints are time and money. So time, how much time do you have to put into it, and money. And sometimes time even includes like your mental capacity. So I was talking with a gentleman yesterday who wants to do this, and he's going to join the program. And he said, the biggest value add for me is I work in a very cognitively demanding job. He's got 4 kids that are all older. And so they're having more character development conversations. It's not just like, like I've got a 4-year-old, almost 4-year-old, and an almost 1-year-old. We're talking like, don't throw rocks at your brother's head. We're changing diapers. It's less like existential stuff. What does peace mean? Like things like that. And so he's like, the value for me in this is I can just show up and be like, you tell me what to do. I'm not doing a bunch of extra critical thinking. I want you to do that because you're the expert. So time and money are usually the constraints. So I would say is, for if you want cash flow as a priority and you've got money to start with, and when I say money, I'd say $50,000 that you're going to put into real estate, start with turnkey. Just buy some turnkey properties, but you have to invest in the right market. Investing in the right market, I call it my money pot method. If you just find the right market, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's easy. You could be the biggest rookie in real estate and you'll bump into deals. It's kind of like I mentioned I got a 4 and 1-year-old. If my wife said, hey, the kids are growing out of their clothes, will you go get new clothes? If I went to Home Depot just because it's closer to me, how could I possibly come home with anything helpful? There's no way. The odds are stacked against me. There's just no way that's going to happen. And I could be a really good dad and really, really care, but my execution was bad. Instead, if I just went to Walmart or Target, I could be the worst father ever and have poor intentions and still come home with something more valuable. So it's not about your intention, it's about your execution. What are you doing? And so the first thing is you've got to find a market where the average deal is a 1.2 rent to price ratio. And those are all over the place. There's probably 50 to 100 cash flow markets in the United States. We've scienced that better than anybody that I know. I don't know of anybody that has a better methodology on this. And I've talked to some people in this space that I really respect. And they basically just said, like, we don't know how to do it. We just kind of recommend try going where they go and hope it works. So that's the first thing. You got to find a cash flow market. Then if you got money, start with turnkey. If you don't, do BRRRRs. Do a BRRRR. You got to learn how to do that remotely. And it is not as hard as people think. You think, well, I got to be there. I got to be next to the property. You can. You just got to know that you're trading something off. All right. If you're deciding I want to invest where I live, you got to be able to quantify, well, how much is that costing me? And we do this in our market analysis. You can say market A, I can invest there. And for every dollar I put in, I can cash flow every property. I can cash flow $300 a month. Or this one's closer to me, market B, and I'm going to cash flow $150 a month. Is $150 a month per door worth me learning the skill of doing this remotely? If it is, great. If it's not, okay. If that number's $10, great. Maybe it could be a different conversation, but you just have to figure out, how do I do this and what's best for me? So that's what I'd say is if you want to cash flow as a priority, I would recommend finding a cash flow market. Again, there's tons of them, 50 to 100 cash flow markets, fourplexes or other small multi. Okay, great. Money cap about 50. Okay. Time's not a factor. Yeah. I think if you've got 3 to 5 hours a week to do this, you can close on a property every 90 days easy. Like I mentioned, Justin, he started 100 days ago. He's got 6 doors already. And so it's not that hard. You can move a lot faster. I just think 90 days is an accurate representation for most people because, by definition, most people are average. That's just the definition. Now you can move faster for sure. But if you wanted to do, if you had say 40 or 50 to start with, time's not a factor. I'd say find a cash flow market and start investing in that cash flow market where the entry point, the median home price is less than $200,000. Usually for these types of markets, the population is between 50,000 and 250,000 people. And the market rent to price ratio, what I call top down rent to price ratio, is above 1%. So that's the median home value is the price on bottom and the median 3-bed rent on top. So if the median 3-bed rent is $1,200 and the median home price is $100,000, that's a 1.2 rent to price ratio. Great, awesome. A market like that, find that market, start investing there. And then usually when someone says, I want to invest in multifamily, you've already clarified this, Kevin, but my first question is, what do you mean by multifamily? Because some people mean 100 units apartment complexes. Others just mean small multifamily, like duplexes, quadplexes. For people that are new investing, I recommend starting with single and small multifamily. So that's a single family home or a duplex or a quadplex, getting one or two of those, and then starting to grow from there. Because what's the difference between a quadplex and a duplex and a quadplex? Basically nothing. The difference between a quadplex and an eightplex? Almost nothing. 8 to 16, almost nothing. So it allows you to scale instead of going directly to a 40 unit, and you don't really have the underlying skills and competencies to be able to do that. You're having to learn everything at once. You're drinking out of a fire hydrant, and you're going to miss a lot, which means you're going to screw up. So how much could you screw up? Let's just call it 10%. On a $2 million apartment complex, that's $200,000. Right? And that's not even that's a very small apartment complex. I don't know, 10 doors. If it's a larger one, call it a $10 million, you could lose $1 million just by screwing up 10%. On a single family home, $100,000 investment, you're out $10,000. And no one wants to donate $10,000, but it's a lot more doable, right? Your kids are still going to eat. You're still going to be able to pay for college, stuff like that. But what it allows you to do is you learn 80% of the competencies and the skills of the next property. So then you just focus on the one or two things that's different. Then you keep doing that. So you learn something new every single time, but it's not learning everything new every single time. So that's what I'd start with. I'd start with a single family or a duplex or maybe up to a quadplex if the deal's good. And then go duplex or quadplex, and then quadplex or 6 to 8plex, and then 8 to 10 to 14plex, right? And scale from there. Because what that'll allow you to do is build the competencies that you need and protect yourself from an unreasonable risk profile. Because the larger assets that you get, the larger purchase price, the larger risk profile there is. I know some people after they start and they get going, I usually see one of two paths chosen. One, they scale and they want higher unit counts for economies of scale, so 20 units, a 40 unit apartment complex, or they say I want to systematize and operationalize for single and small multifamily. All right, like I just want to do that. Yeah, I might take down less total doors, but it's more accessible, it takes less time, and it's a lot more liquid. Like single family doors are so liquid. If I wanted to sell a single family door, I could sell it in 30 days. If I wanted to sell a 20 or 40 unit apartment complex, it's going to be a lot longer cycle because there's less people to buy them. So that's what I'd say for you, Kevin, is if you're starting with $50K, find a cash flow market, and I'd say get your first door, have it be a turnkey. You'll put $20,000 down on a $100,000 house, and you'll cash flow $350 a month, and it'll be good. Make it 10% cash on cash, 10 to 15% cash on cash. What that does, that proves out 70 to 80% of the entire process. You prove out your market, you've got operations set up, you've got your team in place, and all that stuff. Then your next deal, you use the Burr method. Because the Burr method's more scalable, and if you're not starting with $2 million, then you need something more scalable at the front. So then you're just focusing on the other 20% of managing rehab and predicting rehab and the ARV estimation, stuff like that. So that's what I'd say on that side. Does that help, Kevin? Any other follow-ups on that? And for anybody else on the call, okay, great. I'm glad that was helpful. For anybody else on the call that joined a little bit later, you guys get, if you're on the Zoom call, you get first dibs. So if you send questions over in the chat, I'll answer your questions first. For those of you that are watching on socials, you can send them over. You'll be second. Or if you want to get there before the greedy people do, you can hop in the Zoom call, go to school.com/rentals2wealth, rentals, the number 2 wealth, and join the call from there. And we'll get you taken care of. Otherwise, I'm just answering the questions that come in through BlakeSchweine.com/ask. So if you can't come to the call next time, but you still want to get a question answered, go to BlakeSchweine.com/ask. Ken, where can we get a good rehab analyzer? Ken, give me, if I'm wrong, give me additional context, but I'm assuming that you're saying essentially Where can I get, or what's a good tool for estimating rehab? I talked about this a little bit in, AI is changing the game in this too. I'll give you a little bit of additional context on AI, but I talked about this a little bit in the process for analyzing deals. I don't know, 20, 30 minutes ago, but I have a 1, 2, 3 step process for analyzing deals. And each of those steps happen with the core components of, or the main variables that you got to put into a deal. So what don't you know? You don't know the rehab, you don't know the ARV, you don't know how much it's going to rent for, the insurance and the taxes, things like that. So whatever those numbers are going to be, you got to figure out, like, how can I put enough time into this to know whether to throw it away or keep moving, and not put 1,000% effort into every single deal when most of them are probably going to stink. So the first step is easier, but it's not as accurate. Whereas the third step is very accurate, but takes more time. So it's a filtering mechanism. The first step is price per square foot, $10 a square foot for a lipstick fix. In the replay, you can get into a little bit more granular, but $10 a square foot for a lipstick fix, $40 a square foot for a major overhaul, and then wherever you're at in between. If you're like, well, it's not a major overhaul, it's probably a little bit closer to lipstick fix, $15 a square foot, $20 a square foot. And that will give you an estimate. Then you go into the next step, which is line iteming everything out and saying, like, oh, how much is this going to cost? And actually putting down on that list how much everything is going to cost. I don't even put a number next to something unless it costs at least $500, because you're going to round up a little bit, probably add 10% as an overage once you get to list out your entire number. The important component here is not getting everything right. It's putting a number to something. You've got to be decisive. So how much is it going to cost? Just put a number down. The way that your brain learns is in a lot of ways negative reinforcement. So think it's similar to like the way that a missile travels. So you've got those heat-seeking missiles, and we say, all right, we want to shoot this missile to hit this target over here. A missile doesn't say, am I on track? If so, keep going. It just asks, am I off track? And if so, adjust, right? And if not, then don't do anything. And so what we want to do is put a number down, and then when it's wrong, that's how your brain learns and stores it in long-term memory. And you're like, oh, okay, that's why. That's why the actual doing of whatever the task is, the new skill that you're learning, is so important. So you've got to put a number down for rehab. And that's why the line item process is so helpful. So you say, like, well, I don't know what it's going to cost, but everything's figure outable. I could figure it out. I could Google it. I could use AI, whatever. Just put that number down. And then the final is get a quote from a contractor and make sure it's a line item quote. It's not just like a buffet. Hey, it's $20,000 and here's all the stuff we're doing. You want a line item quote so that you can say, like, oh, we can pull that out, put something in. Or they say, well, it's going to cost $10,000 for us to paint one bedroom. You're like, that's crazy. Okay. That's ridiculous. Why is it that much? Oh, actually, that was a typo. It's $1,000. Right. So that's the entire structure. Tax, insurance, and all debt. Okay. So what I would say, that's a little akin, including taxes, insurance, and all debt. That's a little bit different. I would say that's not just analyzing rehab. That's more like analyzing deals as a whole. Let's do this. Let me see. Let me get this link for you because I've got a resource for you. AI toolkit. No. Okay. So let's see if I got this. Yeah. I'm going to send you a link, and everybody on the call can have this. This is my REI Success Toolkit. So it's a toolkit of a bunch of the different calculators, underwriting calculator, cash flow HELOCs, like the things that you need in order to be successful. In fact, I'm just going to share my screen and let everybody see this. Boom. And I'm sending this into the chat right here. You can go there and access this. Boom. So for the one that you want, or the one that you're talking about here, Ken, this is what we're looking at. This is what that page will bring. You go here for the BRRRR property underwriting. If you're looking at turnkeys, different, flip, different, total return on investment, personal cash flow, HELOC, but you're looking for the BRRRR underwriting calculator, go here. And then that will just open up a clickable link. And this is where you're going to go right here. So this is the BRRRR calculator. The way that you're going to use this is all of the blue cells are inputs. All right. All of the gray cells are automatically calculated. All right. So all of the and the initial component is purchase and rehab, and then we got rent refinance, and then income minus expenses. And this is what determines cash flow. All right. So all you're going to do, come in here, boom. Everybody's calculator. In fact, I'll just leave that. Everybody's calculator looks a little bit different. I like to have it in columns like this instead of one tab per deal because here. Because then I can compare deals to each other. So as I compare deals to each other, I can say, all right, well, what's the average return I'm seeing over the last month or two? Maybe I need to adjust my metrics. So let's say we got a purchase of $50,000, and then we've got $20,000 of repairs. And this is what our money's going to cost. We're all in at 77, and it's going to appraise for 110. These are reasonably standard numbers. This number, your percentage of ARV needs to be less than 70 in order to get your money back. If you are just doing a rate and term refinance, 80% makes sense, which means your max loan value is going to be $88,000. And the loan balance you have is just $77,084. So then you get to decide, what loan do I want, what new principal do I want to use? I typically use the max loan balance in order to see how much room do I have. In this case, I've got $6,500 of what I call stupid money. All right, just of buffer. All right, so if I wanted, I could probably come down to 82 if I was doing a rate and term refinance. And in that case, I'm about flat. All right. So now we ask, well, how much is that going to rent for? Property like that, I don't know, $1,450 in these markets. These are reasonable estimates. 7.5% interest rate. Perfect. That's cash flowing $354 a month. And your cash on cash is infinite because you're not coming out of pocket any money. All right. So that's essentially your first pass. Then you got to go through and say, all right, how sure am I on this? How sure am I on this? How sure am I on this? You got to run your own comps. These two are the easiest to find. Property taxes, you can go to the county tax assessors page, property tax assessors page. And with the insurance payment, just go here. Go to blakeswaney.com/insurance. And I've partnered with Obi, and you can go in 90 seconds, you can get a quote here. And it's enforceable if you want to. You can say all right, go ahead and make that happen. But what that does is if they quote you $80 a month on a deal and they give you a quote, now your worst case scenario is $80 a month. You could go shop it around later and maybe get it down to $50 a month. But that is a bindable quote. So if you wanted to bind that, you could get it at $80 a month. And there's no limit to how many times you can use that. So I recommend using that as part of your underwriting process because then you know exactly what this is. Where people get lost, and not even lost, where people get screwed and they lose a bunch of money is they don't protect their downside. They don't have the due diligence processes in place to protect their downside to make sure they don't lose a bunch of money. So then they think, oh, well, the main numbers look good. Insurance is probably, finger to the wind. It's probably $200 a month. But then it turns out it's $500 a month. Whew, that is a big change. So you need to know exactly what these are going to be. And the property taxes, whatever market you're looking at, find the county. So if you're looking at, Akron, Ohio, search Akron, Ohio County. And then whatever county that is, let's just say it's Akron County. Search Akron County property tax search. And then you go in and you search for that property. You find the property and you find exactly what they paid last year. And you can see that number because it's public data. So you turn that monthly divided by 12, turn it into a monthly rate, and these numbers are done. You know exactly what those are going to be. Then rent, right? Your first step is finger to the wind. How much do I think it's going to rent for? Second is you go look at everything that's on the market. And if it's a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot house, you look at other 3-bed, 2-baths, 1,500 square foot houses that look similar to yours, similar conditions, similar age, And you say, well, what do I think is going to rent for? Well, this one over here rented for 1,600, and that's a little bit nicer than my subject property. This one over here, 1,300, and mine's a little bit nicer than that, right? So you find enough, and you say, all right, well, 1,450 is reasonable. And then your final step is talk to your property manager, and you just say, how much is it going to rent for? Literally, that's what they do with their life all day, every day. They are managing properties for investors, so they're experts at that. Don't be the expert. Make it easy on yourself. You can't do that. My property manager's been doing this 40 years. Even if I was twice as good as her, which I'm not. If I was twice as good as her, it would take me 20 years to learn what she's learned. So don't be the expert. Just know the expert. So now you got your rent. You're safe there. Your ARV, this is super predictable. You can go look at the exact same data that an appraiser is going to use. You can get it down to within $5,000 of what they're going to come up with. And at the very end, you ask your agent, if you got a really good agent, this is what they do with their life. How much is it going to appraise for? And appraise for and sell for are different things. In today's market, an appraisal is likely to be higher than what you could sell it for. In a different market, say 2019, your appraisal is often going to be lower than what you could sell it for. So just know that that's why the BRRRR is so reproducible. And then your repairs, how do you protect the downside there? Is you get a quote, a bindable quote from a contractor saying, I will take it and I will do all of this stuff for $20,000. And then my secret, if you want to know, my secret to you never, ever losing any money to a contractor, here's my secret. Pay in credit cards. Always pay with a credit card. Always and forever pay contractors with a credit card. And it does not matter if you know this person forever. Like you've worked with them on 5 deals, you've worked on 10 deals. I've had too much experience, both personally myself and with students, with people that have said, you know what, I've worked with them and I don't want to pay the extra 2.9% processing fee. So I'm just going to Zelle them the money, or I'm going to ACH them the money. And then something happens in the contractor's life where it gets lit on fire, they're short on money, they make some bad decisions, and then they're out money. But if you pay with a credit card and you're paying in distributions, if the contractor skips town or you can't get a hold of them, all you do is you go into your account and you dispute that charge. And the money is back into your account immediately. And that dispute process heavily favors the consumer, heavily favors you. I mean, even if you were completely wrong and you had just like a little bit of a justification, they would still benefit you. So that's what I'd say on the rehab side of things. So for the toolkit, use that. I hope it's valuable to you. Go to File, make a copy so that you can have your own copy and analyze your own. I know we've got just another minute or so, 90 seconds of the call. So we'll start wrapping up here. If you got a quick question, send it over. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. For those that joined the call on Zoom, thank you for joining here. I hope it's been valuable for you. We'll do this again. We do this every single month. And my goal is just to help you make faster progress. But, kind of the theme I feel like today is, taking action. And so if you've been wanting to get into real estate and you've been kind of on the side, and that can look a lot of different ways. It could look like analysis paralysis, where you're analyzing a bunch of deals and you're just not pulling the trigger, and you've been doing that for forever. Or you've been thinking in the back of your head, I want to get into real estate investing, but now's not a good time. It's never going to be a good time. So you've got to decide, is it a priority for you? Because you're going to go to sleep tonight, you're going to wake up and it's going to be 4 years down the road and you haven't done anything. And so you've got to decide whether it's important for you. If you're interested and you want to talk about how I help people with that, great. Go to 90dayrentalroadmap.com, submit an application, and we can talk. We'll set some time to talk and see if it's a good fit. If it is, awesome. Otherwise, if I'm not the right fit for you, I'm happy to connect you with the people that I know that might be able to serve you. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. As always, give more than you take in the community, and post any questions you've got in school, and we'll do our best to help. Otherwise, happy investing. We'll see you next month.